What we do is we sort these diamonds.
Okay, what if I want to buy these? I want to buy one of these diamonds.
If you want to buy one of these diamonds,
yeah, who do I talk to?
You'd have to talk to the beers or the site holders because we don't sell. We only have 2 customers. So we can make
but I can't be a customer. This is my first time in Botswana.
We can make arrangements for you to buy diamonds.
Yes.
But these are rough.
Yeah, I know. But what if I want to buy a rough diamond?
No. We only sell rough to 2 customers.
All right. Welcome to This Week in Africa, your weekly live stream where we talk about all things Africa. We're talking today about iSHOWSPEED'S Africa tour, him exposing some of the challenges in business and post-colonial relationships with private companies, basically exploiting and taking advantage of these old deals and Africa's resources. We're talking about Senegal's win at AFCON, Nigeria lobbying the US government, and much more. But before we get into today's stories, we like to do introductions. So I'll turn it over for introductions before I introduce myself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gloria Ayo. I'm an African storyteller and very happy to be back co-hosting with Joe on This Week in Africa.
All right, and I am Joe Hatagwa, founder of Authentic African Media. We are a company that helps people visit, move, and invest in Africa. We're bridging the gap between those on the continent and those in the diaspora. So, as I mentioned, today we are talking about a streamer, well-known streamer, iSHOWSPEED in Africa, and what this means for the continent. There's been a lot of conversations about this. We covered this last week on Monday on the conversation I had with Ivy Prosper. But we talked about a few things there. We wanted to cover some more here and also get Gloria's thoughts. So we're going to play the rest of this video, give some thoughts on this, and then we're going to talk about the rest of his tour and what it means for the continent. So let's play the rest of this video on basically exposing the diamond industry in Botswana alone. And then we'll talk about the broader implications and have more commentary on the other side.
And then maybe you can talk.
Is that part of your contract? Y'all can only sell to those 2 customers.
That's part of the contract.
Okay.
And just to highlight, these are all natural diamonds. So we're selling the natural diamonds too.
As you saw, all iSHOWSPEED did was ask a simple question, and that question exposed so many things and so many countries at the same time, because it shows you the exploitative relationship this multinational foreign companies have with African countries when it comes to raw materials and natural resources. In this specific case, it exposes how Botswana's diamond industry is set up. Botswana can only sell to these entities because of an agreement that was made years and years ago, and it still stands. By the way, believe it or not, Botswana has one of the best deals when it comes to foreign companies, because other African countries don't even get good shares. So Botswana, compared to other African countries, they are getting a good deal, but that good deal is not good enough if you're looking at it objectively. But as I said, this is a good opportunity to talk about how these foreign national companies, multinational companies, former colonial countries, how they still benefit from Africa and Africans' resources. It's just so unfortunate and it's sad to witness, but it is happening in daylight, in broad daylight. How do you have resources like a diamond that you are blessed with, and you can't even sell it to whoever you want? You have to sell it to the specific entity because of a deal that was signed years and years ago. As I said, Botswana has a better deal compared to other countries. But
all right, we'll stop it there and give some commentary, because I think you guys got the idea based on that. So Gloria, your thoughts on this discovery by iSHOWSPEED and the deals that are being discussed. And shout out to African Diaspora News Channel for doing the reporting on this particular angle, because I haven't heard this from many other people.
Yes. So the 2 moments, or rather, the 2 customers that were actually referenced in that video refer to the primary channels through which Botswana's diamonds move. De Beers, we just have to mention De Beers. They are a multinational, a giant that has had some sort of monopoly over the diamond industry. So De Beers on one hand, the Okavango Diamond Company, ODC, that one is actually state-owned. And this arrangement that we're now getting more insight into is actually a product of a 50-50 joint venture known as Botswana. So again, back to De Beers and the monopoly. Historically, De Beers has controlled nearly 90% of the world's diamond supply. So raw gems would bypass local markets entirely. And Botswana is actually the world's leading producer of diamonds by value. However, ordinary citizens and local entrepreneurs cannot easily possess or trade rough stones. It is actually legally restricted under the Kimberley process and national law. And basically it mandates that only licensed people can handle uncut diamonds to prevent conflict gems from entering the market. So iSHOWSPEED'S encounter has actually exposed this glass ceiling where all the cutting, all the polishing, the jewelry design, all of it occurs outside Africa, depriving us of the majority of the profit. And to be fair, Botswana, unlike other resource-rich nations that fell into the resource course of civil war and corruption, has utilized its partnership with De Beers to fund universal health care. It's given free education. There's been infrastructure that has come out of all of that. Since independence in 1966, Botswana has transitioned from one of the poorest in the world to an upper middle income nation. But while the government reinvests billions into social services, it's all about the visibility. What is the visibility of that wealth? And it seems low compared to the gems that are being exported. So the advantage of what iSHOWSPEED has inadvertently done or exposed is that now there's a mass awakening for many who are seeing how the global supply chain works for the very first time. It's the same conversation we've had many times. Africa is a source of raw materials instead of it being a hub for finished luxury. Why can't it be Africa?
There it is. Yeah. And look, I second that. And as you mentioned, we have mentioned this many times, right? The raw materials are mined and sourced in Africa. They are then refined and sold many times back to Africa or Africans, whether on the continent or in the diaspora, at much higher prices. I've used this example and I'll use it again. I was at Kotoka International Airport, the name of the airport, by the way. That's a whole nother conversation. We should talk about it another time. But I was at Kotoka International Airport in Ghana, and I was going through the duty free, and I saw Swiss chocolate. It was like $5, like a $5 bar, There is no chocolate in Switzerland, right? The chocolate actually came from Ghana, refined in Switzerland, packaged, and sold back to Africans at a $5, where it was actually sourced from Africa. And that happens with all the natural resources and raw materials. It happens with crude oil, right? Many times it's refined elsewhere and brought back. That's why it was such a big deal that Nigeria had opened up that second refinery. And then, there's conversations about what Dangote had been doing with his oil refinery, depending on how people feel about those two those refineries, but it's really important that we refine our own natural resources and we generate the profits as a continent. And this is something that we will continue to talk about. But I think it was really interesting that was a discovery. And I'm not sure he fully understood what he was talking about, like what he was hearing. But I think that angle from the African Diaspora News Channel made it possible for others to kind of get an understanding of that. And I'm glad that they looked at that angle. Now, the other thing is, there's been other positive benefits of iSHOWSPEED being on the continent. He is the first person of African descent, let's say, more, a melanated person of our complected or darker in this range of complexions. It's hard to say because everyone's a descendant of Africa technically, right? But when we mean that, what we mean. he's the first person to hit 50 million subscribers on YouTube. That is one of the platforms in which he utilizes to do all the things that he does. iShowSpeed is one of these people who's a streamer. What is a streamer? It's somebody who goes live like we do, but he goes live for much longer periods, and he also does what they call in real life streams. So he does a stream where he'll walk around with a camera crew and a live feed to the internet to film him as he goes around and does different things. Sometimes it's different athletic feats, right? Like, you know, he was trying to pull a car with the world's strongest woman, or in other cases, he's walking around in a city. In other spaces, he's live streaming festivals and events in different countries. And he's going to 20 countries, 28 days around the continent of Africa. And so he just turned 21 years old. So you can imagine who his audience is. Generally, it's not the same audience that watches this content. Many of you are all aware that Africa has 54 countries, maybe 55, maybe 56. There's some disputed regions, but we'll say 54 recognized countries, right? We all are aware of that as we're watching this. Many of the people who watch iShowSpeed's content are not aware of that. And that is evidenced by the reaction videos of people crying and saying, I thought Africa was this. I thought Africa was, you know, only mud huts and etc. In 2026 and at the end of 2025, there were people who still thought that. People of melanated skin complexions, people who are of African descent who did not know that in these United States. We have to remember the average reading level in the United States today is 6th grade, right? It's a 6th grade reading level, equivalent of a 12-year-old. So if that is the case, you would imagine there aren't a ton of people who have a lot of insight into geopolitics and what's happening around the world. And so this is actually beneficial because I think what it does is it helps to do some PR, right? The United States and Europe have done a great job of doing PR, right? They do not show Skid Row in their videos, right? They don't show some areas in Philadelphia or Chicago where you have, you know, extreme violence and other things, because that's not beneficial to its presentation on the global stage. The continent of Africa, unfortunately, has only been shown one way. And so this has been useful and helpful. Long diatribe, but I thought that was necessary. I won't say too much after we watch this video, but I did want to show you a quick clip from his channel so that I can show you what one of his in real life streams looks like for those of you who aren't familiar, because I think this might be interesting to you all, at least to understand what people are watching. All right, so let me share this and then we'll have a little bit of commentary afterwards. So this is iShowSpeed showing up in Nigeria.
We are here in Nigeria. Chat, we are here in Nigeria, bro. Today's my birthday, and we're gonna hit 50 million, and we in Nigeria. We got all 3 in 1. Hey, man, I ain't gonna lie, bro. Like, I'm already feeling weird, chat. I'm already feeling different, bro. I'm already feeling different. Like, bro, I'm 20. Like, I don't even know. This age feel a little weird, because, you know, you just feel older, man. It's crazy, though, because I watched me grow up, bro. So it's probably, like, it's a special moment, bro, because I really grew up. I grew up on YouTube as well, so my whole teenager childhood is on YouTube. So it's cool to see you know, like an evolution of me and the growth in myself over these past years. So it's amazing to see it in real time, bro. But anyway, chat, let's have a good stream. Let's turn up, bro. Let's go, chat. Let's go, bro. 21, 21, 21, dog. We are here in Nigeria, bro. I'm really here, y'all.
Welcome to Nigeria.
Yes, sir.
We're in the streets of Lagos.
Yes, sir.
I'll take you outside. Let me give
All right, so just to give you a little bit of an idea, yes, that is a lot of what it looks like, right? He usually starts off with an intro like that. What he has is his phone on his wrist so he can look at the chat, so he can see what people are actually saying live. That's something that a lot of in real life streamers, IRL streamers are doing now. And it started off by people just playing video games on stream and people watching them, and then it expanded to more of what their lifestyle looks like. So just wanted to give you guys some context to, like, when he was looking at his arm and what that was a phone that he had there with the chat that he could look at the chat. Gloria, your thoughts on One, him arriving in West Africa. He's in Nigeria now, and the exposure of the continent of Africa to his audience. 50 million subs on YouTube, a couple of million on Twitch. Your thoughts?
To be relatively young and just so respectful, to just respect, you know what I mean? Even when it's, you know, since certain, you know, because one thing about us, we're gonna represent, and you will know we're there, right? Some people don't get offended by that, but he's been extremely respectful, respecting the dignity of the people. I cannot just, I mean, I admire that so much. Shout out to iShowSpeed. This is a moment, okay? It's not just about a content clip. This is a cultural event. This is internet history colliding with real Africa in real time. Because obviously Africa has been spoken about, but not necessarily in the most flattering light, you know, but for that to be experienced live by one of the biggest youth influencers on the planet is huge. For him to be celebrating milestones among the people, you know, because obviously his audience are Gen Z, gamers, streamers, meme culture, reaction culture, but they get to see Lagos, they get to see Nigerian streets, they get to feel Nigerian energy, they get to see the chaos, they get to see the joy through somebody that is as influential as iShowSpeed. And this rawness is what makes it so powerful. He's not obviously trying to impress anyone. He's actually trying to sanitize it. You know, he's there experiencing it like a tourist who actually cannot believe what he's seen. And that's why his authenticity, you can see through the clips, and that's why those clips are traveling so fast. Because for decades, Africa has been framed only through struggle, poverty, conflict, or aid. But now millions of young people are seeing the nightlife, the music, the street food, the fashion, the slang, the celebrity culture, the everyday life. Now they get to see a modern African megacity and not just something that National Geographic showed them. Sorry.
Yeah, well put. And, you know, look, that's 100% true. And you have to think about a 21-year-old. Now, you know, I know that sometimes his vocabulary is limited, but he is much smarter than I think people give him credit for. Because I saw him do a couple of quizzes on locations of different African countries before he started this tour. And, you know, he got 7 out of 10 on one, which were really difficult, because many people in America can't even determine where other states are in America, including myself. Sometimes I have some challenges with some of those quote unquote flyover states. So it actually was pretty impressive to see what he was able to do there. And yes, to your point, and what I said earlier, I think it's huge that Africa gets seen from all angles, right? It's usually extremes, right? It's the extreme poverty, and that leads other people who want to show extreme wealth, right? And, you know, what he's showing is more of everyday life and, you know, everyday culture, right? And, you know, he's already been to Senegal. He's done the dances with the, you know, the devils. Every country calls them something different, but those, you know, we all have them in our West African countries where during specific types of events, there are these guys dressed in these like straw things with the masks on, and Gambia has it, Senegal has it, Nigeria has it, Sierra Leone has it. We all have our own version of them, mostly seen as cultural, not necessarily religious, because I think most people have chosen one of two religions that were brought to West Africa, but still things that kind of continue. And so he shows that. And, you know, we do that through our content. Somebody like myself who goes to the continent and I shoot content there and I try to show as much as I can. We've been limited in our reach, right? Not as many people see the videos. The biggest person in our space that I mentioned before is Wodimaya, right? And Wodimaya has 1 million subscribers, and he's done a great job of sharing the continent with the world. And there have been other folks as well who've done an excellent job. They've been named before, you know, Vanessa Camby and a bunch of other folks. However, combined, we don't reach 50 million subscribers, right? And then the number of views might be 100, 200 million views, right? Or more. So this by itself, as you said, is a cultural event and is culturally significant. And we will see if this leads to more focus on the continent, people who had casually been browsing to maybe pay attention more, and we'll see. We'll see. I hope that it does.
You know, I need to respond to that, right?
Yeah.
You know, I have to respond to that. Okay.
Yes.
Of course it's going to be chaos. Are you kidding me? That's the beauty of it. It has to be chaotic. If it's not, Joe, you know, if it's not chaotic, have you even been to Nigeria? I get, you know what I mean? I'm just saying chaos is part of it. And I'm not here trying to minimize or, you know, trivialize chaos, but I'm just saying that's part of the beauty of it. It's just the rawness, you know? But let's not also forget the other side of it, you know, the joy that we bring. And by the way, Joe, you clearly missed the clip where he talked about Nigerian jollof. He had eaten Senegalese jollof, okay? We had a conversation about this off air, and there's a clip where he has said, in his opinion, Nigerian jollof is better. And he's gonna go to Ghana, and then you'll see. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
We will not get into the jollof wars here, but iShowSpeed is one person with one opinion. We will defer to the events of the last 10 years, international events with multiple taste testers and what they say. So, but thank you, iShowSpeed, for giving Nigeria one more reason to have the amount of pride that they have at an all-time high. So with that, but honestly though, it is an important cultural moment. And, you know, as much as some people think that it's ridiculous, it doesn't matter. Things like this do matter. You will see travel increase. You will see, you know, obviously tourism increase. All of those things will be a part of this. Now, it's not as easy and it's not accessible to everyone. And we'll see his audience, but let's see as his audience ages, right? Because he is 21 years old. He just turned 21. Yeah. So we will see how others respond over the next few years. But you never know how somebody like this can plant a seed for so many people. The continent is not without its problems, for sure. But I think it's important to show more of it to broader audiences than what has been displayed previously. Now, on to the next story. We talked about this a few weeks ago, or actually last week. On the day we had our live stream, there was an election in Uganda. And if you're not aware by now, Museveni, the reigning president for so many years, was re-elected. There was a lot of talk about suppression of votes. There's allegations of all kinds of things happening in country. And Bobi Wine, the main opposition leader that many of the youth were supporting and behind, has gone into hiding, and he has spoken to Al Jazeera and others about what it's been like. I just want to say he exposed exclusively to Al Jazeera, sorry, while hiding in a tense presidential election that he says was rigged. President Museveni has condemned Bobi Wine for rejecting the results of last Thursday's vote. The 81-year-old president declared himself, or was declared, the winner of the presidency of Uganda. So we will play a little bit from this video from Al Jazeera, and we'll have some commentary on the other side.
Much of Uganda has returned back to normal after a tense election marked by violence in some parts of the country and a disputed poll results. President Yoweri Museveni has accused the main opposition party, led by Bobi Wine, of trying to destabilize the country and cause chaos.
I asked the confused people to come back to sanity, because what they are planning, what they wanted to do, we already know, and we have already demobilized.
Wine, also known as Robert Chagulanyi, is in hiding after security forces raided his home last Friday. How are you? How's your family?
I'm alive. I don't know how my family is.
He spoke to Al Jazeera.
I would love to be in my home. I've not changed. my clothes in days. I want to be home. I want to be free. I want to take care of my people. But the military and police have taken over my home. This is a crackdown to intimidate, to silence, and to completely, subdue the forces of change.
You have rejected the elections. You said that the election is rigged. What evidence do you have?
This time, not the police, not the military, but Electoral Commission officials took part in critiquing ballot papers in favor of General Museveni. Glad enough, we have record of them. We have videos of them doing that.
Do you want people to come out to the streets to protest?
We want the people of Uganda to take charge of this and find numerous creative ways. Could be protesting on the streets. Some of us started protesting by holding high the national flag. Others can protest by staying at home.
Protests largely over the election result turned violent in different parts of the country. Most of the violence happened in areas like this. Several people were killed in some areas, allegedly by security forces. Police said they were containing a riot situation. Namutebi Oliver is grieving her son. He was shot by a stray bullet during running battles.
I think we'll leave it there, but you can see that there was, some opposition and some protests in the street. So your thoughts on yet another election win, which we were pretty sure was going to happen. Your thoughts on this win and the way that the protests were reacted to.
Yeah, one major concern I have is that this isn't making news enough. This isn't being talked about enough. And it's because people are so used to the pattern. Unfortunately, even we last week, as you mentioned, when we touched on it briefly, that was the day the election was happening. And it almost seemed like we were resigned to the results, which I'm not trying to take that stance and be, all resigned. And, because when you do that, you do enable people to say, okay, the people don't care anyway. They know we're going to do what we have to do, and they're not going to react. So I'm measured in even how I put that out. The Uganda People's Defense Force has denied reports that Wine had been abducted by a military helicopter. But he maintains that he managed to escape a coordinated raid designed to place him under indefinite detention. As of today, his wife and family remain under house arrest. Yeah, as we've seen in the video, he stated that, just look at the situation he's in. We can see him saying that in the video. And Wine has decided, which I think is wise, and I'll explain. He's decided not to contest the results in the Ugandan courts because it's a captured judiciary. When they tell you go to court and when the judiciary is in their pocket, I don't know. But what he's calling for instead is for peaceful constitutional change and for people to protest in the streets. So I think that's a better use of his energy. Isn't it really sad that we've gotten to a point where it's like, don't even waste your time with the courts. Expend that energy doing something that would be more substantial, something that would have results. Otherwise, you're going to spend all that money and time and energy disputing something. And at the end of the day, something has to change. It starts with the Constitution. And this isn't the first time. In 2021, he was famously placed under house arrest for 11 days immediately following the election. And at the time, the Ugandan High Court actually ruled it illegal. However, this particular situation that's happened after the election is actually presenting a sharper edge, because now you have Museveni's son as the head of the armed forces. This man has gone on social media to issue an ultimatum, giving Wine 48 hours to surrender, or he'll be treated as a rebel or an outlaw. What? So on one hand, the government is celebrating this landslide, and now they're promising continued stability, they're promising upcoming oil wealth. But the reality on ground is that Kampala is marked by deserted streets and a heavy military presence. And there are actually reports of a silent unaliving of people, according to the opposition. And they're saying that over 100 supporters have been unalived or they've disappeared in snatch squads since polling day. So once again, you have a generation of youth who feel that their votes have been stolen.
Yeah, well put. I mean, it's tough because his son has been installed as a senior military official, will likely take over once, you know, his life comes to an end, Museveni himself. And so, you know, it will be very difficult to see an opposition leader win in that country. So we'll continue to monitor the situation. It is years long, very tough for any real change to happen there, but we'll watch and we'll continue to report on it. Now, there was a quick question from, shout out to Jada. She was asking, what do we, from the previous story, what do we think about Mr. Beast coming to the continent? I can give my quick thoughts. I think there's a lot of people who feel upset by Mr. Beast coming to the continent and building water wells, right? And all those kinds of things. I think what he's doing is exposing some of the challenges that we discuss on this live stream, right? Some of our leaders should be doing that with the funds that come from USAID or UK aid, which no longer are sending funds, but when they were, or World Bank and all these funds, the leaders on the continent should have been using those funds to do these things. Mr. Beast is using YouTube money, Jimmy, whatever his name is. I don't know his last name, but he's using YouTube money, funds that he generates from YouTube and the sales of his chocolates and these little burgers that he does, to either reinvest in videos and or do through these philanthropic efforts. It just shows that it can be done and that it should be done. So I have no issue with it, because if those places have been asking for it and they need it, then give them what they need. So those are my thoughts. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that quickly.
I completely agree. And I remember at the time sharing his visit to the continent. And I mean, on one hand, I can see why people would feel that way. What I would have preferred to see, actually, in retrospect, would have been some kind of balance. Yes, you can do the great stuff. I have no problem with that, but also show the beauty of Africa and also choose to go to the places that are beautiful. It's not everywhere that's, you know, in need of help or has some distress that you have to visit. There are other places, so just balance it for next time. But I think his intentions were good overall.
Yeah, I mean, his whole thing is about philanthropy, right? So I didn't see it as an issue going there, but you do make a good point that there are balance is necessary. Okay, so now moving on to the next story. Former Burkina Faso leader was arrested in Togo and expelled, and he was the alleged coup plotter, at least in this most recent coup. You guys might remember there were two coups in Burkina Faso in around a 2-year span. There was one where this gentleman was the original leader, if I'm not mistaken, and then he was overthrown by the group who felt that he had not kind of lived up to the expectations that they sought. So he had fled to Togo, and he has now been arrested and expelled. So we will play this video and have some commentary on the other side.
Burkina Faso's former transitional president and the alleged mastermind behind a number of coup plots has been arrested in Togo and expelled, local sources say. Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba ousted Burkinabe President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore in a 2022 coup. But 8 months later, Damiba was overthrown himself by the military leader Ibrahim Traoré, who's still in power. Reports say Damiba was arrested in Lomé last week and tried for the attempted destabilization of Burkina Faso. He was then taken to the airport, although his destination hasn't been confirmed. Since going into exile in Togo, Damiba has been accused of numerous coup and assassination plots. Ouagadougou says authorities foiled an attempted assassination of Traoré planned for January 3rd.
So we reported on that a couple weeks back, that coup attempt, and we had mentioned that he was the alleged plotter of that coup, and now he's been arrested. So your thoughts, Gloria?
Yeah, and interestingly, people actually think that the arrest is only about the coup plot. But the charges against Damiba are actually large. I mean, you have criminal embezzlement, you have illicit enrichment, to the much more explosive incitement to commit crimes and money laundering and things like that. So again, it's not just about the coup plot. But just a quick history on Damiba. He rose to prominence in January 2022 when he ousted President Kabore, citing an inability to curb the jihadist insurgency. However, 8 months later, he himself was deposed by Captain Ibrahim Traore for the exact same failure. Now, his exile in Togo, which I found very interesting because, you know, Togo, with the when we're talking about our leaders, you know, the sit-tight leaders who cling to power and don't want to leave because they think it's their birthright. Of course, the president of Togo comes to mind. So this makes it all very interesting. Initially, you had religious and community leaders trying to help prevent a civil war that could have actually happened in September 2022. But Traore provided guarantees for Damiba's safety, so no threats of unalivement or anything like that. However, over the last 2 years, there have been accusations by Traore's government of Damiba orchestrating plots to destabilize his government, all from abroad. So this arrest, obviously, I mean, the main catalyst for it was what happened earlier this year, January 3rd to be specific, where the government alleged that Damiba was the mastermind behind a plan to unalive Traore. Now, back to Togo. Under President Faure Gnassingbé, Togo has positioned itself as some sort of mediator between the isolated AES juntas and the wider international community. So what they've done by extraditing Damiba, they've somehow cozied up to the AES. I mean, but hey, I guess it's a win for Burkina Faso at the end of the day, because Damiba returning to Burkina Faso is actually a political victory for Traore's administration. And now it can present its most prominent rival for trial, you know, instead of just allowing him to remain some kind of shadow threat in exile.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that they follow the process of a trial to show that, you know, they are working in the process of what is seen as democratic institutions and processes, because that is one of the major complaints I think people have, is that when a military leader takes over, military might is used to solve every challenge and problem. And so we'll look forward to seeing how this trial goes and what happens. You know, even though this person attempted, according to Traore's government, to unalive Traore multiple times, and he's been one of the main culprits, according to them. So we will see. Okay, moving on to the story that many people have been talking about is Senegal's win of Africa. So AFCON, sorry. And AFCON is Africa's Cup of Nations. It's like kind of the pre-qualifier for the World Cup, and the African, it's like the African region's cup, right? And so a lot of times there's controversy with the North African countries, specifically Morocco. You guys might remember the last time there was an AFCON, Morocco won, if I'm not mistaken, and they thanked everyone but Africa. They thanked the Arab world, they thanked FIFA, they thanked the fans, but they did not include Africa. And there was a lot of controversy around that, right? There was a lot of commentary and controversy around that. And this year, Senegal and Morocco were in the final. And there were a number of things that were discussed and that were caught on camera. There was unsportsmanlike conduct by Morocco, stealing towels from the Senegalese players and staff, stealing towels, which is petty and childish, but that's what they were doing. Which is why there's all these memes about when you go over to your Moroccan friend's house and they have no towels, or when you invite a Moroccan friend to your house and you have no towels after they've left. There's jokes. These are all kinds of memes and jokes that are happening. There was also the fact that there's footage of the FIFA officials all saying like they didn't want to hand the trophy to the Senegalese team. There was also some controversy around the police and their treatment of some of the Senegalese players. Morocco fans in the stands forcibly removing some Senegalese fans. And there was some issues with some of the Senegalese fans as well. There's a video here that we can play that this gentleman does a pretty good job, and his name is Aaron Ikaya. Aaron Kikaya, who I think does a really good job of kind of explaining all of it. Because for those of us who are not soccer football fans, there's a lot here that you may not know, but it's an international story. So we thought we would cover it and touch on it a bit since it's on the top of people's minds. So with that, we will jump to this video and we'll have some commentary on the other side.
Grand scheme of things, African football's image has been tarnished by that final. And that is on both camps. Senegal fans, you guys have been fantastic. Your support for your country has been fantastic. Now, I'll be the first one to say that, yes, I can lose my head when I don't agree with the refereeing decision. But for you, a fan of Senegal, to lose your head to the point where you want to invade the pitch, that's disgraceful. You should know better. Then there's the whole issue of the Senegal players being told to get off the pitch by their manager. Was that the best decision to make at that time? Probably not. But big up to Sadio Mane, man. Sadio Mane stood there like a man and called his teammates back. And I don't know if you guys understood French. For those who didn't, he said verbatim, tell them to come out. We'll finish this game like men. That's what he said. And honestly, this fully embodies Sadio Mane, who he is as a human being, his beliefs, his principles. That is Sadio Mane, a proper leader. Now, on to Morocco, because they are not innocent either. First things first, what is this obsession with taking goalkeepers' towels? Why do you do that? That is childish behavior. I'll be honest, that is just childish behavior. The ball boys, your job is to make sure that the footballs are ready at the player's disposal or the goalkeeper's disposal whenever they ask. Your job is not to be taking goalkeepers' towels and throwing it to the back. That's not your job. I kind of felt for Edouard Mendy, and I've seen a different perspective from the stands, right? Where a fan is actually telling Hakimi, take the towel and throw it away. So Hakimi takes the towel and he goes this, and the fan goes, yeah, throw it away. And Hakimi just throws it away. Like, when did we get to the point where instead of being focused on the game, you're listening to what fans are telling you to do? What are we doing here? At one point, Edouard Mendy takes the first towel, it gets thrown away. Second towel gets thrown away. Third towel, the second goalkeeper, bless him, had to stand there with the third towel in his hand to make sure that none of the ball boys take it and none of the players take it. Because at some point, there was a player stood in front of the second goalkeeper, literally staring at him. I mean, what are we doing? He's already been subbed off. Like this. Do you understand the craziness of these things? Then the ball boys chase the second goalkeeper around the touchlines because he just wants to hold on to the towel, and they're chasing my man, trying to grab the towel off him. And I'm just like, what are we doing here? And this is all in a final. On both sides, you have disgraced this final. I think in the grand scheme of things, African football's image has been tarnished by that final. And that is on both camps. Senegal fans, you guys have been fantastic. Your support for your country has been fantastic. Now, I'll be the first one to say that, yes, I can lose my head.
Okay, so a lot there. I think he was trying to be fair and spoke specifically to Senegal first. What was missed in this, as I mentioned, was the police treatment of many of the Senegalese players after the win. And then also what was missed in this video was there was some footage of two Senegalese fans in the stands and the Moroccans screaming at them, pushing up on them, and ushers had to come in and remove them from the stands. And so obviously there has been this conversation about Northern Africa versus Sub-Saharan Africa and how the treatment and lack of respect from many, is there. And I think this was illustrative of that sentiment that people have. Your thoughts, Gloria, on this story and what's been happening post this whole Senegalese win at AFCON?
You know why I'm chuckling? Because I just remembered when you sent me a video and you were like, is this AI? Like, it was just that unbelievable what was going on. That was such an embarrassment. Towels? Like, are you kidding me? And I'm glad you shared, the background. You did talk about when at some point props were given to the Arab world, Africa was being sidelined when Morocco was, it's just always been that divide between North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. And I have personally wondered about it. I've, matter of fact, thought about highlighting that. And, sports is only a reflection of the reality on ground, the underlying issue. So it was just an embarrassment, honestly. And the sportsmanship was just so bad. They weren't good players. I'm sorry. Morocco, y'all did not bring your sportsmanship to the table. And that was really, really embarrassing. And of course, the Senegalese people got on the defensive. Why? It's just, come on. This was supposed to be a great moment to highlight and showcase Africa, and just be the big boys. Put on your big boy pants and just congratulate the winners. That was sore. I still can't believe that actually was put out for the whole world to see, and it's really sad. But more importantly, it does highlight our challenges as a continent. We're truly not united. It is like two different worlds, and that's why I've been to Morocco, and I've seen people's reactions since going to Morocco and saying, "Oh my goodness, we didn't know it was so stunning. It was so beautiful." Obviously, we know about places like South Africa. We know about Kenya. We've heard of countries that are stunning and have great infrastructure and things like that. But many people do not know about what's going on in North Africa. And that's because it just feels like a completely different world. It all goes back to the colonial times, and they have more proximity to Europe. And probably, I'm not saying all North Africans think that way, but some of them probably think they're more European than African. So here we are.
Yeah, well put. I think I've said enough on this topic. I think that was just one thing that I think was really, really important to call out. This is not new, and I think this is indicative of a larger challenge. The disrespect that has been shown to Sub-Saharan Africa, and it's interesting because this has been a problem for a long time. I went to the Kwame Nkrumah Museum, and one of the things that I thought was really interesting is that Kwame Nkrumah married the Prime Minister of Egypt's niece in order to try to bridge the divide. Even at that time, Kwame Nkrumah was the first president of Ghana. Look him up if you're not aware. To try to bridge the divide between North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. That was like at least according to them, that was the main goal of that, was to kind of bring these two areas together. They are separated by, I guess, the Saharan desert, but it is all one giant landmass, but it could not feel any different. I've only been to one country in North Africa, and that's Egypt, and it did not feel like I was in Africa when I was there. Felt like I was in some places parts of the Arab world, in some places it felt like I was in Europe, just in terms of the fact that a lot of them were speaking French and chain smoking cigarettes. Felt like I was in Europe. Didn't feel at all like what I feel like when I travel around West and other parts of Southern Africa and Eastern Africa. So with that, a couple more stories. In the interest of time, we will start with one and see if we can get to another. There was two more stories we wanted to talk about: Nigeria lobbying the American government, but then also I think something that's really important. One of our former leaders on the continent, Patrice Lumumba, was unalived in a coup, and all that was left of him, if I'm not mistaken, was his tooth, because he was dissolved in acid. And it was the footage of it is terrible. You can find it online. I'm not going to show it to you here, of how he was being beaten. And it is crazy to think that someone who was only in power for, I think, about a year, and had that much of an impact, and was taken out so early. And he was the former prime minister, if I'm not mistaken, of the Congo, the DRC. And you see all the challenges with the DRC today. So anyway, his family has pushed to open up a trial, and I am going to share a part of a video that speaks to that, and we'll give some commentary on the other side.
Kumar, thank you very much. Now we move on to Belgium. The family of Congolese independence leader Patrice Lumumba is seeking justice as a Belgian court considers whether to prosecute the only surviving suspect in his 1961 murder. Lumumba was executed and dissolved in acid by separatists with the help of Belgian mercenaries. 93-year-old Etienne Davignon, former Belgian diplomat, is accused of involvement in the unlawful detention and degrading treatment of Lumumba. His family has been pushing for a trial for years, saying it is about revealing the truth behind the colonial crime. The court will decide whether to proceed with the trial in the coming weeks.
Thoughts on if in fact this does happen, what this might mean for the idea of truth and reconciliation?
Yes, I'm happy. Of course, the anniversary of Lumumba's passing was actually on Saturday. I'm happy that the world is talking more about it. I did do a 3-part series myself on my social media platforms at the Gloria Ayo, if you want to check it out. A 3-part series. First part, I talked about how the US had tried to give him a potion to drink or put it in his food and his toothpaste. But that didn't happen because there was a bigger plan, which was ultimately what led to his unaliving when he did get dissolved completely. And one of the Belgian officials actually had the audacity to take his tooth, and he kept that for decades. So that was finally returned to the family, and they were able to have a proper funeral for him. However, there is one surviving Belgian official who was part of those who did what they did to Lumumba. And now the Belgian authorities are considering bringing the case back up. The man has to have justice. Look at what's going on in Congo. If at the very least, the West could leave Congo alone, we would say, okay, maybe Lumumba's unalivement was not for nothing, but Congo is still going through it. I also talked about the uranium that was used in places like Hiroshima. Congo was largely the source of it. All of these things were what Lumumba was fighting against. And shout out to that man who stood up at the AFCON match and brought a lot of attention to Patrice Lumumba. We need justice for Lumumba. We need justice for Congo. I am with the family on this, and I hope, because Joe, you and I pointed out that many people are not talking about this. We need this story out. We need justice for Patrice Lumumba. Free Congo.
100%. And I'm ashamed to say that I was not aware who Patrice Lumumba was until about 5 years ago. I lived my whole life into my 30s and was unaware. And so, as much as I can, I've also done a small mini series on my YouTube channel about his life and his unaliving as well. So, there's plenty of insight and information there. I know Gloria did a great job in hers. So just go to her Instagram page. You'll find it there. And then also too, if you're not aware, do yourself a favor and just look up videos of African leaders who have been unalived or overthrown by the West. There is a long list. And so you guys can check that out and you will be surprised, or maybe not, covert and overt measures that have been done to do that. Did you have an additional thought?
I'm sorry, Joe. I did a video on that, 10 leaders that they feared. I think I tagged you in that as well. But yes, I tagged you in that as well. There is a video out there that actually gives you the list, and you could do more research on every single person I mentioned.
So go to Gloria's Instagram page. That video is there. All right. So the last story, with the interest of time, because I think it is important, is it speaks to the American lobbying system and how throughout the years it has been used to curry favor and get things done by African leaders who don't always have African interest at heart. In this case, there's some controversy around it. Basically, Nigeria has reportedly signed a $9 million contract with an American lobbying firm in Washington, D.C. to shape international perceptions of the country's security challenges following growing global criticism over what most people are saying is religious violence and rising insecurity. The move has triggered some debate at home in Nigeria, with supporters describing it as a strategic effort to manage narratives and engage foreign policymakers, while critics argue that the funds would be better directed to on-the-ground security measures. $9 million is no small amount. So in this program, she will this news reporter will give a little bit of insight, and then we'll give some more commentary before we bring this thing to a close.
I think the audio is not on.
Oh, you guys can't hear that?
I couldn't. I don't know if anybody else couldn't.
Okay. Well, anyway, we described this, so we could just talk about it. And those who, if you did hear it, you got enough of it. So your thoughts, Gloria, on this lobbying contract?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I want to speak to this comment that I see. The Igbo tribe of Nigeria are desperate for power, so they're trying to use religion as the reason. I'm guessing you meant to write. I've addressed this as well. You see, the challenge is that we are not united as a people. And because of that, we cannot hold our leaders accountable as we should. It's not only Igbos that think that there is an attack on Christians, okay? And I'm not here speaking for or against. I have expressed many times that I will not dismiss that claim of Christians being unalived because we don't have enough data. We don't have enough. These cases are underreported. Hasn't there been, there was a topic we were initially going to cover under News Around Africa, where a church just recently, a church, the congregation was kidnapped. So, it depends on what side of, I guess, the experience you're on, but I'm not going to diminish or take away from people's lived experiences if they feel that they've been through something like this. So the point of me doing this is not to call you out. It's just for us to look at things through the lens of just patriotism. Let's be Nigerian first and not make it a thing of one ethnicity versus another. This has been one of the issues in Africa. But back to the lobbying conversation. I have also expressed that the Nigerian government, instead of being worried about the reputational damage, why don't we focus on just ensuring that all Christians are protected, that all Muslims are protected? Do you know how far $9 million would go? Joe, you said it's a lot of money. Do you know what that could do for the health system? Just recently, we talked about what happened with the Anthony Joshua unfortunate tragedy that happened with the car crash and how we did not have an emergency response system on ground. Do you know how far $9 million can go? This is why I speak to unity. I'm more about the unity of all Africans. What we have in terms of ethnicity, the ethnic divide, is a colonial construct. Let's put our nation first. Let's put our continent first. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just add that the reason why you see so many military coups happening is because of these kinds of insurgent groups, these terrorist groups that operate the way they do, right? Nigeria shares a border with Niger. Niger has this issue. Mali has this issue. Burkina Faso has this issue. And their former leaders did nothing about it, which is why they had military coups. And which is why they remain under military rule, because the people are tired of living in fear. In northern Nigeria and now other parts of Nigeria, this same fear is growing. And, the number of losses of life and kidnappings are, as you mentioned, underreported, and it's really important that the Nigerian military do something about it. Now, I've seen videos of the amount of weapons that these insurgent groups have, because many of them are linked to ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and they have oil money and they funnel that money into Africa. The thing is, that money cannot get to these insurgent groups without going through proper systems, because these countries, they're not landlocked. Well, the AES is. They have to go through somewhere. If it's coming in cash, or if it's coming in through wires, banks, there has to be a system in which this money is funneling through. So there are complicit people in making sure that that money gets there, and also that these weapons get to these locations. So that $9 million could have been better used to focus on actually defeating this group and increasing military presence, as opposed to lobbying to try to make sure it's not seen as just a Christian issue. I know we're at time. There were some stories from around the world that we wanted to cover. You covered the police story of the gunmen abducting villagers, and it actually being, it was at a church. Many people from the entire church congregation. There was also the screwdriver salesman behind Trump's airstrikes in Nigeria. The link is going to be in the description if you want to check that out. And then South Africa's defense ministry has launched a probe into Iran's participation in the BRICS Plus 6 is what I call it, naval exercises held near Cape Town this week, after reports that President Ramaphosa has asked Iran to withdraw to avoid antagonizing the United States. We didn't really have time to go into those stories.
We didn't go through the list of officials and Museveni's cabinet. Maybe we should do that next week.
Oh, yes. So we will go through the list of officials in Museveni's cabinet next live stream. It's interesting how much they're related or married to people who are related to Museveni. So we'll do that in the next live stream. We'll remember to do that. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Gloria, for doing this. I do have to jump for a call, but thanks, guys. We'll see you guys all next week. Bye, guys.
Hey.